Zillow came out with their listing access standards just this week in front of what next week will be, right after Memorial Day, May 28th, the notifications to brokerages, to agents when they're non-compliant with listing their properties in the MLS within 24 hours of them being marketed publicly, they're going to get a notification from Zillow. As of June 30th, you do that more than 2 times, 3 strikes, you're out. That listing will not be allowed to be shown on Zillow's system, and that's going to be a problem, especially with the market we are headed into. So they came out with their clarification. Then late this week, little curveball from Hanna Holdings, the largest privately held brokerage in America. Hobie Hanna did an exclusive article with Inman, and they essentially informed 70 MLSs as well as NAR that they no longer consider themselves bound to the clear cooperation policy. So it sounds like a game of chicken may have been started between Hanna Holdings and some of these MLSs, and it'll be interesting to see how they react. In addition to reviewing these things, particularly the Zillow guidelines, I also will mention a couple of things that I think some MLSs do that they shouldn't do, that cause some of this infighting. I was actually reminded just this week at a branch office of a couple of archaic policies in a certain MLS that we do business with that I think need to go in a couple of the MLSs that we do business with. I'm going to cover that as well. Anthony Lamacchia, broker owner of Lamacchia Realty and owner of Crush It in Real Estate, here to break things down for you. So I thought RAS Media put out an awesome article. They broke down the Zillow guidelines. They grabbed that famous quote that Zillow keeps saying, if a listing is marketing to some buyers, it should be marketed to all buyers. I mean, it's hard to argue with that statement, right? Specifically, as of May 28th, Zillow will start notifying agents and brokers if a listing violates access standards. Each non-compliant listing will be logged as a single violation, and the listing agent will be notified directly on each violation. Blocking of listings in violation of Zillow standards won't begin until June 30th. So basically, everybody's going to get a mulligan here for 5 weeks, and then things are going to get trickier. With the ban going into effect, upon an agent's 3rd non-compliant listing. So that's pretty simple. If you cheat with 1, you'll get a warning. You cheat with 2, you'll get a warning. You cheat with 3, Zillow's not going to allow your listing on their website. Now, some of you may hear that, and you might say, well, good, I don't need Zillow. The hell with Zillow. Watch what you wish for and be careful, because the consumers are tethered to Zillow, okay? From first-time buyers to luxury buyers. We've got a deal being negotiated right now for an almost $4 million property somewhere in Florida. There was a Zillow lead that came in, and guess what? That Zillow lead is from a very prominent business person in America that we're negotiating right now, okay? So don't get cocky. In addition to that, particularly speaking to those of you that are in higher inventory markets, okay, we're seeing inventory go up across the country. Up here in the Northeast, you look at Massachusetts, we're now over 10,000 homes for sale as of a week ago, or 2 weeks ago. Now we're almost at 11,000. Next week, 12,000. Inventory's rising. As it rises, you will feel the pressure that your listings need to be everywhere, because you will not get as much interest in the homes. And sellers, believe me, they will blame you if their listings don't sell. And if they don't see their home on Zillow, they will have a problem with it. I'm talking to those of you that have only been in the business 5 or maybe 8 years, that have been spoiled by this unrealistic market where everything you touch sells. The veterans in the business, you know what I'm talking about. Let me go on with this first media article. Clarifying its policy, Zillow stated, a listing marketed publicly to some buyers must be entered into the MLS within 1 business day for distribution and display on Zillow, as well as other sites that receive MLS feeds, so all sellers and buyers in the market can access it. Now, some of you agents might say, well, this is what we've been doing. What's the difference? Careful. If you have been, say, leaving a listing appointment, and you take a picture of a property and you put the address, or you put substantial substantive information, and then you say, to get the address of this property, contact me. That's what Zillow is targeting. They've got a problem with that. And we actually had a couple of conversations with Zillow about this, and about what they're doing with their rules, and we made some suggestions. Looks like they might have at least heard us on some. Not necessarily agreed, but they heard our thoughts. Coming soon. And delayed marketing listings are allowed if the MLS entered within 1 business day. if they are entered in MLS. Now, sneak peeks, that's exactly what I'm talking about right here in this Risk Media article. Sneak peeks are also permitted as long as they don't include details that could make it a listing, such as a call to action in details such as price and address. Didn't I just say that? Agents and brokers are not allowed to publicly market that off-market listings are available to those buyers who are willing to work with that agent or brokerage. So, hey, we've all done it in the last 5 years. Those of us with sizable companies, those of us that know how to market, we've said, hey, contact us to get exclusive access or to get a list of maybe some homes that haven't been listed yet. Why not do it if you can? Zillow's saying they've got a problem with that. So that's an area that I think I'm going to need more clarification, but I wanted to point that out. Now, the haters in the industry, or haters of me, they say, oh, but you have a link system. Yeah, of course we do. We're a competitor. We need to do things to drive business in, to drive buyers in, to drive sellers in. That's the way it goes. But we are definitely proponents of listing properties on the open market and utilizing the MLS because that is what's best for buyers and sellers. All right, Zillow also noted that new standards will not affect new construction and for sale by owners. Want to point that out. So that's a little bit from the Risk Media article. Now let's look at the Zillow Listing Access Standards document specifically. Then I'm going to show you FAQs and I'm going to read to you the details that you need to know as an agent on what you can post about your upcoming listing and what you can't. Because believe me, violations are going to be going out left and right. One thing I asked myself in reading all of this yesterday and this morning, I said, I hope Zillow hired about 100 new people to handle this. Because I don't think they quite understand how difficult enforcement can be with hundreds of thousands of realtors kind of doing what they want. I mean, the MLSs struggle with this. So, wanted to mention that. They talk about purpose, scope, marketing listings. One thing that caught my eye, for purpose of these standards, an MLS is a centralized database, whether or not affiliated with the National Association of Realtors. I thought that was a good thing for them to say. You know, there's many people that feel Zillow's trying to be the national MLS. I mean, if they are, I can't say I blame them. Competitive world, right? That's how things go. But I thought that was a good statement by them. Definition of public marketing. For the purpose of these standards, public marketing means promoting, marketing, or advertising a listing in any manner, including without limitations, flyers, yard signs, social media, public-facing websites, apps, mailers, newspapers, open houses, blah, blah, blah. Well, I mean, come on. Our general counsel said, what's Zillow going to hire a Gestapo to drive around every city? I doubt it, but they're probably going to depend on competitors putting in complaints about other realtors. I wouldn't be shocked at that. So let's take a look now at not only the listing access standards, but what agents need to know. This is another page on Zillow's website. And by the way, we're going to put all of these links within the emails that we send out and other things so that everybody can get their hands on them. If you can't find them, just comment on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook with your email and we will send these things to you. Next, I thought this was interesting on the second page. These listing access standards are how we're implementing NAR's clear cooperation policy on Zillow sites and reflect our belief in fair access for all. Again, I mean, Zillow's very much coming out here like they're backing NAR, like they're backing the MLSs, and it's kind of interesting to see because there's been a little bit of a cold war between the two for many years, but this is interesting. So again, it talks about May 28th, this starts, there'll be warnings, but then it says blocking of, we're going to put this on the screen, blocking of violating listings. We will not start blocking listings until June 30th. Beginning then, an agent's third non-compliant listing and any subsequent non-compliant listing will be blocked from Zillow in Trulia for the life of the listing agreement between the listing broker and seller. So they're basically saying 2 strikes. That could be 2 different listings. You do it on a third listing, that third listing is going to be banned from Zillow for as long as you have that listing. Now remember, if you're an agent, what's going to happen? You're going to run into situations where if a seller finds out that, they're going to want to fire you. They're going to want to get out of the listing agreement with you and hire someone else so they can end up on Zillow. And that's going to happen with the homes that aren't selling. And we are going to be getting into a market. We are already in a market where there's more listings not selling, but that's going to grow by late summer and fall. Mark my words here today. You can quote me on it. All right. What's allowed under the access standards? Office exclusive listings are permitted as long as a homeowner signs the disclosure. It's so funny reading this. They sound like an MLS. Then you get to FAQs, which is also on this same link. This is the part I want to review with you all in a lot of detail. So agents pay close attention here, okay? If I post a listing on social media and if it's not in the MLS within 1 business day, it will be blocked from ever appearing on Zillow. It will be blocked. Okay. If a social media post includes the following, it is considered public marketing and would not be in compliance with our standards. Call to action around selective marketing of the listing. Example, a social media post of 123 Main Street with a link to visit the brokerage site, which is gated behind a customer login. That would be an issue. Example, agent posts a photo of 123 Main Street and asks clients to comment with the neighborhood name to get the link of a private listing. Again, they have an issue with if you post it in a substantive manner and you sort of gate it, you hold it, Zillow has a problem with that. Listing details which could approximate a listing with an accompanying call to action. Example, a social media post of 123 Main Street for $500,000 with a call to direct message the agent for a tour of the home. That's a problem. Now, pay attention to this part specifically. This is what I want everyone to know. Alternatively, if a social media post about an upcoming listing does not include the call to action or listing details, it is compliant with our standards. Example, a social media post including an image of a home giving an agent's followers a sneak peek before it goes live on MLS. We brought this up to Zillow, okay? One of the examples, and I'm sure we weren't the only ones to bring it up, but one of the things I said to Zillow is I said, hey, you're going to ask us brokers to control what an agent does? An agent signs up a listing, walks out of their car, does a quick selfie, listing coming soon, more information next week. That's a hard thing to police, and if Zillow tries to police that, that's a problem. So it looks like they're viewing that as something that alternatively is okay. But again, don't be substantive or they're going to have a problem with it. Can't say I blame them here with what they're doing. They're trying to protect. Some people say, they're out for themselves. Well, no shit. That's how business goes. Companies are out for themselves in some cases. But I do believe they're also watching out for buyers. I mean, there's no denying. If we run into a city, as I've said in many, many videos, and it frustrates me every time I talk about it, if the industry just allows people to hoard listings all over the place, we're going to be Europe. We're going to be South America. Buyers aren't going to be able to see all properties. The sellers won't get access to everyone. I'm going to talk about that more when I get into Hanna's position. Do the standards impact new construction? No. Builder inventory is not impacted under these new listing standards unless the property is listed with an agent under an exclusive listing agreement, which is already required to be an MLS under the Clear Cooperation Policy. Blah, blah, blah. So new construction for sale by owners, they're not doing it. Now for the curveball that Hanna Holdings threw out to the industry. And for the record, I've said it in videos before, love the Hannas, very much respect their company, but Hobie and I disagree on this. He is clearly a proponent of undoing the Clear Cooperation Policy, and I am not. I think that it's a good policy. I think it's better to keep it in place. And I also think the market's going to solve it. I've talked about this many times. We've been in a low inventory market for 5 years, okay? Extremely low inventory. We were getting into a lower inventory market from 2015 to 19, hence why this got brought up, hence why it was voted on in San Francisco in November of 19, hence why this went in place in May of 20. There's a history lesson. As inventory goes up, there will be less and less, and then almost no companies or agents that will be tempted to hoard their listings, because agents have been running around with this many buyers and this many sellers. When you have a low amount of sellers and a high amount of buyers, it's easy and tempting to hoard a listing. When that flips, which it already has in Florida, Texas, Arizona, and it's on the way to doing that in the northern states as well, when that flips and you have more sellers than you have buyers, you don't have temptation to hoard listings because you want to sell the damn thing and you don't want to end up with an angry seller. But I'm reporting to you on what Hanna said and what their position is. As I said they no longer consider themselves bound by the organization's Clear Cooperation Policy. I think these are some statements from Hobie. Indeed, it was adopted in response to a fear that brokers were pursuing novel marketing strategies and taking advantage of technology. Stamping down on the innovation harms brokerages and it harms their customers. Hanna Holdings does not consider itself binding, the clear cooperation binding to them, and no Hanna Holdings affiliate or franchise will adhere to the policy as a matter of course. Hey, give them credit for one thing. They got guts doing this. It will make these decisions, they're saying as a business, they'll make these decisions based on their own business interests and independent of NAR and other brokerages. I will say I think there's some legal reasons they're doing this. They didn't tell me that. I do know them. I do speak to them, Hobie, periodically, but I don't think that they haven't told me that, but I'm surmising that there's probably some legal reasons they want it to be loud and clear that they're not following the policy here. I guess it sounds like some of the MLSs, let's see, West Penn MLS, Bright MLS in the Middle Atlantic region, MLS Now in Ohio had responded that they want to have some dialogue with them about it. But it sounds like Charlottesville Association of Realtors in Virginia and MLS in North Carolina have said they'll do whatever NAR tells them. So, you know, as I've said before, NAR is in a tough spot. Right? If they enforce the rule too hard, then they get sued. So they enforce the rule, but they said, we'll allow the delayed marketing exempt listing, right? Well, they did that and they allowed the decision to be made by the lower level local MLSs. And what does that do? Causes some of them to have to enforce these things. Hobie said, we have not make independent decisions. I think they have not made, I think they're saying they won't follow suit. I think that was misquoted. That's what gets industries in trouble. Let's see here. Now, I thought this was an interesting statement by Hobie. He's kind of reminding me of me here. We won't pay the fines if the MLS, so they're saying if the MLSs fine them for not putting the listings in, they won't pay the fines. And we don't think our agents should pay the fines if a seller has the choice. Bold statements by a big, very impressive CEO in the business, and notice he's being respectful. He's having a policy disagreement, and he's being respectful. Unlike someone else at Compass, their leader, who I respect, but being disrespectful, putting out posts about NAR's boardroom and saying, look how fancy it is, and look how much they spend, and attacking people personally, or NAR personally, which is silly. At least Hobie is just publicly stating his frustration with the clear cooperation policy, and he's entitled to do that, and I'm entitled to do a video and say that I disagree with him on that policy. Now, that's my opinion. I do want to say a couple other things. Last, I think that the MLSs have worked as hard as they can over decades here, particularly since they've come online and since technology has come into the scene, to do what's best for consumers, to do what's best for realtors in most cases. But I do think there are some MLSs, and I won't call out specific names, but there are some MLSs that still have archaic rules, and I think they are asking for lawsuits. I was reminded this week in one of our branch offices, in one of the 9 MLSs that we're in, that we still have to send listing agreements to the MLS so that they can see the start date, the end date to the agreement, the price. Crazy. They're not the police of our listing agreements. And I understand they're trying to be, or they have been, and maybe that policy made sense 20 or 30 years ago. But sending in listing agreements is ludicrous. And that does walk into the trap of some of this antitrust stuff. And it frustrates me. In addition to that, this is something I see with most MLSs. Most of them have policies that from the time the listing is signed up, it needs to be listed in the MLS within 24 to 48 hours. That is a completely unrealistic policy. It doesn't work in the practical world. It puts agents in an awkward position. It puts sellers in an awkward position. Okay, when I signed up listings in droves by the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, personally, go look at my stats if you don't believe me. MLS PIN, 2006 to 2011. Those were my height years signing up listings, and then I stopped selling in 11. You know what ended up happening? I would have to talk to the seller openly, talk about the policy. They'd say, well, I'm not ready to list within 48 hours. I got to get my rugs cleaned. My son's coming over this weekend. We're cleaning things. We're washing the screens. And I'd say, yeah, we got to schedule our photographer, blah, blah, blah. And then I'd say, okay, take it easy, Mr. Seller. Here's a delay form to allow a delay. The seller would see it. The seller would sign it. So what does that cause? That causes realtors to have another conversation, pull out another form, explain another form. It also causes some realtors to end up meeting with sellers and then saying, oh, you want to list in 3 weeks? Okay, I'll come back the day before. Complete inconvenience to seller and realtor. The realtor's got to go back out, get the listing signed up the day before because they're trying to adhere to this crazy policy. So I know this video will be watched by all many MLSs, I wish all, across the country. And I'm sure NAR and many other policymakers will see it. And I'm calling upon any of these MLSs that have these archaic policies. The first one I mentioned was sending in listing agreements. That's a low amount of MLSs that do that. But the list within 24 hours or 48 hours of being signed up is crazy. So for those that are on MLS boards nationally, I'm not. I think you should consider a more realistic policy. A week, 2 weeks, having some leeway. Or maybe when the seller wants to, right? Those types of things are where I have some agreements with Hobie, where I have some agreements with Robert Refkin. When they talk about seller choice, some of those little details, I'm with them on that. The overarching clear cooperation policy, I'm not. And that's okay that I'm not, and that's okay that they're not. They're respectable people in the business, and they're allowed to voice their opinion just like I'm doing. That's all. I hope it makes sense. Put your email in the comments. If you're missing any of this, we will have these articles posted. We will, and we'll have them all on recases.com, and we can send these out to anyone that needs them. Thank you all. Good luck. Happy Memorial Day weekend for those of you that watch it before the weekend or during. Thank you.